In keeping with the Chug range, Combiner Wars and Unite Warriors are all about modernizing classic Combiner teams, from Generation 1 to Victory, Beast Wars, even Car Robots. With that said, welcome to the 3-part review of Bruticus vs Baldigus, where I look at the Combiner Wars Combaticons alongside the Unite Warriors Combatrons. With the latter, I'll address them by their Japanese names. It is a Takara set after all. Kicking things off are the deluxe land vehicles. As you'd expect, Brawl is an olive green tank. In the States, each Combaticon's deco is based on the Generation 1 toy, whereas in Japan it's the cartoon. Either way, Brawl looks admittedly dull color-wise. At least the moulding across the toy is brilliant, including on the turret, which sadly doesn't turn. But like his teammates, he has this accessory to make up for it. It's a recurring piece with all deluxes that triples as a weapon, foot, or hand for the gestalt in question. Here it plugs on top and rests above the turret, just like his old weapon. Technically the gun barrel is also a separate piece. Well, that's one way to get a retool out of this. Amongst the Combiner Wars Combaticons, Brawl is the only new mold, which fans off all the more when they found his waist didn't lock in place. Mine does, so I apparently have one of the later copies. I hear it's fixable, though like a number of figures out there, we shouldn't have to. Sometimes I fall the waist forward to cover that gap in the midsection, though it hides the paint apps and sacrifices articulation. Otherwise, posability's pretty decent, despite Brawl's appropriately stocky design. You have 3 joints in each shoulder, a ratchet, a hinge, and a vertical swivel, ball-jointed elbows and hips, swivels in the neck and thighs, hinged knees, as well as ankle tilts, which I always appreciate. He can wield both weapons handheld, or on the side of each forearm. The original Combatrons are straight redecos of the G1 Combaticons. Unite Warriors follows suit, so Danga is the repaint of Brawl. He's not as well known, but honestly, I prefer this desert camo over Brawl's solid green paint job. It's just more visually interesting. The Combatrons have their own emblem, an upside-down G2 Autobot symbol akin to the inverted cross. Danga's waist locks in place, and so do the other repaints and retools of Brawl apparently. Still has that annoying gap. The Combatrons come with a different set of accessories. Pics show Danga wielding this repaint of Unite Warriors Scavenger's blaster. The tank mold is probably my least favourite deluxe in both sets, but of the 2 versions, Danga, with his deco, marginally wins out. On to the SUV. Swindle is a major retool of one of my favourite Combiner Wars toys, Rook, to the point where it's a different vehicle. No really, aside from the rear portion, it's hard to tell they share a mold. He's not the old-fashioned military jeep from G1, but I feel this works as it doesn't look especially threatening, not unlike Swindle himself. That's not to say he isn't armed. You have 2 ports and a post on top for you to plug in the combiner piece as well as his gun. The detailing is great, and like his teammates, the deco is drab yet fitting for both the character and vehicle. The roll bars are painted black, but otherwise most of the colour is reserved for Bot mode, where you have quite a bit of purple, black, and these blue paint apps to break up the yellow. Here you can see he's a Rook retool, and even then the moulding across the toy differs quite a bit. While the head sculpt is great, I agree with Emgo that a smirk would befit Swindle's con-man persona more than this somewhat stern expression. While he can move in roughly the same spots as Brawl, posability is even better since his arms aren't as cramped, and his larger footprint equals better stability. Some of the joints are different too. For instance, instead of ball and socket elbows, you have ratchets. There are also swivels that enable his arms to move outwards and inwards. Swindle can wield his weapons handheld, or on his shoulders, or just like Brawl's, the weapons themselves can combine. And here we have Combiner Wars Hound. Kidding, Miss Grijiba. They're ignoring Hound's Autobot logos, could you really tell them apart? Especially with the Jeep military star on the bonnet. Despite also being primarily 2 colours, I find this forest green more appealing than Swindle's mustard yellow. In robot mode, the orange chest, that most Combatrons sport, really pops against the rest of him. The actual paintwork seems somewhat thin, and the orange could have been darker, but personal tastes. Grijiba's weapons are repaints of Swindle's and Unite Warrior's longhauls. The base mode is already my favourite deluxe of both sets, as well as the entire Combiner Wars Unite Warriors era, and thanks to Grijiba's colours, the Combatrons strike again. I'll cover the limb modes in part 3. Next time it's aerial combat, mostly.